pressure mounts on Joe Biden to confront Iran. Assalamualaikum, salam Malaysia Madani. You're watching World Today with me, SAHIH. Their Majesties Al-Sultan Abdullah Riyatuddin Al-Mustafa Billah Shah and Raja Permaisuri Agong Tengku Azizah Aminah Maimunah Iskandaria returned to Pahang today after completing a 5-year reign as the 16th Yang di-Pertuan Agong and Raja Permaisuri Agong. They were accorded a royal ceremonial welcome attended by thousands of people comprising state dignitaries and VIPs as well as members of the public. The special aircraft carrying the royal couple touched down at the Kuantan Air Force Base in Pahang at 11:55 a.m. The aircraft had left the Kuala Lumpur International Airport, KLIA, at 11:16 a.m. escorted by two RMAF FA-18D Hornet fighter jets flown by Major Saifuddin Bahari and Major Muhammad Afendi Muhammad Idir. Earlier this morning, Al-Sultan Abdullah and Tengku Azizah were at the Parliament Square for the sending-off ceremony marking the end of their Majesty's reign. Al-Sultan Abdullah and Tengku Azizah were welcomed by Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim and his wife, Datuk Seri Dr. Wan Azizah Wan Ismail, as well as the two Deputy Prime Ministers and their wives. At 9:20 a.m., their Majesties continued their journey to the Bunga Raya complex of the Kuala Lumpur International Airport, KLIA. As the motorcade of Al-Sultan Abdullah and Tengku Azizah proceeded along Jalan Parliament, over 3,000 people from all walks of life, including civil servants and private sector's employees, lined both sides of the road to bid farewell to Al-Sultan Abdullah and Tengku Azizah. US President Joe Biden faced intense political pressure Monday to retaliate against Iran for a deadly drone strike on US troops, posing a major challenge for the Democrat in an election year. Striking Iran would dramatically escalate the risk of the wider war, Biden says he's trying to avoid, not to mention the possibility of more US caskets coming home in the months before polls open. But with Republicans urging the 81-year-old to hit Iran directly, Biden can ill afford to portray weakness as he struggles with low approval ratings ahead of a likely rematch with former President Donald Trump. The White House said Monday that Biden was weighing his options for a very consequential answer to the attack on a base in Jordan that killed 3 US troops, the first to die in hostile action since 7 October.
We don't want to see a widening of this conflict. We don't see this conflict widening as it still remains contained to Gaza. But this attack was certainly escalatory in that it killed 3 service members.
Iran has denied any link to the attack, which Biden blamed on Iran-backed militias. National Security Council spokesman John Kirby strongly denied that Biden's decision would be influenced by the election. White House National Security spokesperson John Kirby on Monday called comments on Gaza resettlement by some Israeli politicians reckless and incendiary. On Sunday, Israel's Hard Rights Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir urged Jewish settlers to return to Gaza at a packed gathering, drawing condemnation from Palestinians who said his words amounted to a call for their forced deportation.
I know there's a lot of interest.
Over the weekend, some ministers from the Netanyahu government attended a conference that is calling for Israel's resettlement of Gaza. Did the administration notice that? Did you have any view on that?
Some of this rhetoric and the language that was attributed to some of these ministers at this event, irresponsible, reckless, incendiary, I'd go so far as to say, and certainly doesn't comport with our strong policy statement, what we have made clear, that there can be no reduction in Gazan territory.
What is it?
The Palestinian Authority also said that such calls by Ben-Gvir have incited the forced displacement of Palestinians and threatened the security and stability of the region. The comments were also condemned on Monday by both Hamas and by Israeli opposition figures. Meanwhile, deadly fighting again rocked Gaza on Monday as a bitter row fled around the United Nations aid agency for Palestinians over Israeli claims that some of its staff joined the 7th October attack. Fears also grew of a widening regional conflict after Washington vowed a very consequential response to an attack that killed 3 US troops in Jordan on Monday. The United States, Israel's top ally, blamed fighters backed by their common arch enemy Iran, but also stressed that the US don't seek a war with Iran or a wider conflict in West Asia. The Palestinian Health Ministry also said that Israeli bombing of the Gaza Strip killed 215 more people within 24 hours, including 20 members of one family. The Israeli army said its ground forces, backed by tanks, have focused their combat operations on the main southern city of Khan Yunis, the hometown of Hamas Gaza leader Yahya Sinwar. The Palestinian Health Ministry said Israel's relentless military offensive has killed at least 26,650 people in Gaza, most of them women and children. Ukraine fired artillery rounds at the Russian-held city of Donetsk on Monday, killing at least 3 people and wounding 3 others. Denis Pushilin, head of the region's Russian-backed administration, said 3 other civilians had sustained moderate injuries, adding that Ukrainian forces fired the rounds from a Guard multiple rocket launcher system. Donetsk, a city in eastern Ukraine occupied by Russia and its proxy forces since 2014, has repeatedly been targeted by what Moscow had called indiscriminate Ukrainian shelling. Russia and Ukraine have accused each other of a sharp escalation in attacks on civilian areas over the past 2 months. On 21st January, Russian-backed officials accused Ukraine of striking a suburb of Donetsk, killing 27 people, many of whom were shopping at a busy market. Ukrainian shelling and drone attacks in Russia's Belgorod region bordering Ukraine on Monday also wounded at least 1 person and damaged several homes. Meanwhile, Ukraine said Russia's fired shells at its military and civilian areas across the country on Monday, launching rocket attacks at least 86 times over the past day. Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin and his Belarusian counterpart co-chaired on Monday a session of the Supreme State Council of the Union State of Russia and Belarus. Putin said the 2 countries pursue a coordinated foreign policy under conditions of an unprecedented external pressure. European Union, United States and many other countries introduced economic sanctions on Russia after Moscow started what is called its special military operation in Ukraine almost 2 years ago. Belarus, Russia's closest ally, is facing various restrictions too. Speaking during the session, Lukashenko said that Russia bears the main burden and suffers more than anybody else, promoting the model of multipolar world together with Belarus and China. Putin and Lukashenko signed 15 agreements aimed at further strengthening of the Union State of Russia and Belarus, which marks 25 years in 2024. Still to come, invasive vegetation stoking fierce Bogota fires. Stay tuned. Venezuelan opposition leader Maria Corina Machado, who has been disqualified from running in this year's presidential election, insisted on Monday that the poll could not take place without her. Venezuela's Supreme Court, which is loyal to President Nicolas Maduro, on Friday had upheld a 15-year ban on Machado from holding public office. The Supreme Court also confirmed the ineligibility of a possible opposition stand-in, 2-time presidential candidate Henrique Capriles. The 56-year-old Machado described the ruling as grotesque and showed no sign she would bow out of the race. Machado told her supporters she received the mandate of almost 3 million Venezuelans in an opposition primary in October, adding that the poll could not take place without her. Last year, Maduro's government and the opposition reached a deal in Barbados to hold a free and fair vote in 2024 with international observers present. That agreement saw the United States ease sanctions against Venezuela, allowing US-based Chevron to resume limited oil extraction and leading the way to a prisoner swap. Washington has also warned that it could restore sanctions on Venezuela in response to the Supreme Court decision. Carlos Bolsonaro, a son of former Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro, was targeted by federal police raids on Monday in investigations into suspected illegal spying on political foes during his father's term. Federal police, who are investigating accusations of illegal monitoring of citizens by the Brazilian intelligence agency ABIN during Bolsonaro's 2019-22 administration, served search and seizure warrants against Carlos. A police statement said 8 warrants were being served in Brasilia, Rio de Janeiro, and 2 other cities to identify the main recipients and beneficiaries of information illegally produced by Abin through clandestine actions. His son Carlos, a city councillor in Rio, was essentially Bolsonaro's propaganda minister and ran an office inside the presidential palace suspected of putting out fake news against his father's political adversaries and authorities that oppose his actions. Carlos has denied running a fake news operation. Now he's being investigated for allegedly using data collected by the ABIN agency through an Israeli software called First Mile used to track the location of private cell phones. Forest fires, which have engulfed Bogota in smoke over the past week, have been fueled by highly flammable foreign plant species that have invaded Colombia's capital. Experts said eucalyptus, pine and gorse cover the Andean mountain range bordering the east of Bogota, where 4 wildfires have broken out in the past week. Biologist Arnold Garcia Samaca of the National University of Colombia said this: trees and shrubs contain oils and saps that are very flammable and help maintain the fire for hours and even days. Additionally, fire helps them reproduce and they take over larger areas, displacing native vegetation. Amid hot, dry conditions linked to the weather phenomenon El Nino, fires have devastated more than 17,000 hectares across Colombia over the past 3 months. Eucalyptus trees, almost all of which are native to Australia, and the European pine were introduced in Bogota at the start of the 20th century as urban growth fueled demand for wood. The common gorse shrub, native to much of Western Europe, was planted in the 50s in a bid to halt soil erosion. The Bogota's mayor's office said it has since been declared one of the 100 most aggressive and invasive species in the world and is a threat to biodiversity. Bogota authorities have removed more than 130 hectares of gorse in the past 4 years. No easy task in the hard to access areas in which it grows. Even as her home country of Cuba crumbled around her, Elsa resisted joining the growing US-bound exodus until she felt she had no options left. But the 30-year-old finally packed her bag last year and after a long and dangerous journey, made it to Miami in November. Elsa is among the nearly 5% of the island's population that has fled to the United States in the past 2 years, the biggest wave of immigration since Fidel Castro's revolution. The communist island is in the grips of its worst economic crisis in decades, with sky-high inflation and shortages of fuel, medicine and basic foodstuff, and US sanctions aggravating an already dire situation. Like thousands before her, Elsa flew to Managua, Nicaragua, and from there made her way 3,000-odd kilometers to the US border. On Saturday, the US Customs and Border Protection Agency said it had registered more than 153,000 irregular entries from Cuba in 2023. Another 67,000 entered legally under a humanitarian parole program introduced a year ago by US President Joe Biden's administration in a bid to slow illegal migration. Mexico's president on Monday promised an investigation into the hacking of personal information of several hundred journalists from a government database after media rights activists voiced concern for their safety. The Latin American nation is one of the world's most dangerous countries for the press. President Andrés Manuel López Obrador, a left-wing populist who regularly uses his morning press conference to hit out at critics, blamed his political adversaries for the leak.
Para que quede clarísimo, no fuimos nosotros. Nada más que se va a presentar la denuncia para que se haga la investigación. Y no quede la menor duda.
Last Friday, a cybersecurity expert, Victor Ruiz of the Silken firm, revealed that the names, identity documents, telephone numbers, and, in some cases, addresses of more than 300 journalists accredited to attend López Obrador's new conferences had appeared online. Media rights group Article 19 described the incident as unjustifiable and said it could put the reporters at risk. Mexico is one of the deadliest countries for the press, with 163 journalists murdered and 32 missing. South Africa's ruling ANC suspended the country's former president, Jacob Zuma, from the party on Monday and vowed to launch a legal challenge against a rival group campaigning in his name. The decision, which was widely expected, will be seen as a further sign of disunity in the movement ahead of this year's general election, in which the long-dominant ANC is expected to lose ground. Zuma was the fourth president of Democratic South Africa from 2009 to 2018, but was forced from office under the cloud of corruption allegations, and he has become estranged from the party he once led. In December, he declared that he would be campaigning for a new party, Umkhonto we Sizwe MK, or Spear of the Nation, named after the ANC's former arm wing during the anti-apartheid struggle. ANC Secretary General Fikile Mbula Lula said that in addition to suspending Zuma, the ANC could complain to the Electoral Court to get the new party deregistered and mount a trademark challenge to recapture the name. Zimbabwe launched a vaccination campaign against cholera on Monday to rein in a worsening outbreak of the disease that the government said has killed more than 400 people. The World Health Organization, WHO, said the southern African country received a first batch of almost 900,000 vaccines last week. On Monday, government officials started administering the first doses in Kuwazana, a suburb of Harare, the capital and one of the hardest hit areas. Health Minister Douglas Movisora said in a statement that there have been a surge in the numbers of cholera cases, attributable in part of the onset of the rain and flooding and increased population movement during the festive season. Cholera is contracted from bacteria generally transmitted through contaminated food or water. Zimbabwe has been battling the current outbreak since February last year. It has reported more than 20,000 suspected cases and 400 deaths, of which 71 have been confirmed by laboratory tests. In November, Harare declared a state of emergency, with some officials drawing comparisons with 2008, when cholera claimed at least 4,000 lives in the country and at least 100,000 people fell ill. Next in sports, Jordan beat Iraq to reach Asia Cup quarterfinals. Stay with us. The national team secured their berth in the quarterfinals of the inaugural Hockey Five-a-Side World Cup after beating Fiji 8-3 in Muscat, Oman yesterday. Akimullah Anwar Isuk was a star for Malaysia in the Group D encounter, scoring a hat-trick with strikes in the 10th, 15th and 28th minutes. Akimullah has scored 7 goals in the tournament so far. Sharman Mati, Abid Sufyan Mat Rusli, Firdaus Omar and Kamaruzzaman Kamarudin delivered the other goals for Malaysia, while Adrian Smith, Jerome Edwards and Hector Junior Smith replied for Fiji. Sharman said the players executed the plan laid out by national coach Walderstan well and it paid off. The other Group D fixture yesterday saw host Oman downing United States 6-4. Malaysia and Oman both have 7 points, but the latter have a slightly better goals difference, which sees them topping Group D. The national team will face Trinidad and Tobago in the last 8 later today. Malaysia had beaten United States 3-2 and drawn 3-3 with Oman earlier in the competition. National elite referee Muhammad Nazmi Nasaruddin has been chosen to officiate the 2023 Asian Cup round of 16 match between Uzbekistan and Thailand at the Al Janoub Stadium in Qatar this evening. Muhammad Nazmi will be assisted by 2 other assistant referees from Malaysia, namely Muhammad Zairul Khalil Tan and Muhammad Arif Shamil Abdul Rasid. The appointment of Malaysian referees for the match between Uzbekistan and Thailand was confirmed by the Asian Cup competition referees technical expert from Malaysia, Subikhedin Muhammad Saleh, a former World Cup referee. In the match, Omar Muhammad Ahmed Hassan Alali from United Arab Emirates will be in charge of the video assistant referee VAR and assisted by Khalid Saleh H. Al Turais from Saudi Arabia. Thailand, who are making their second consecutive appearance in the Asian Cup competitions round of 16, will have the opportunity to become the first country from Southeast Asia to qualify for the quarterfinals, since Indonesia has already been knocked out after a 4-0 defeat to Australia. Meanwhile, Uzbekistan will be eyeing a 4th quarterfinal appearance and their first ever semi-final berth. Jordan advanced to the Asian Cup quarter-finals after 2 stoppage time goals secured a 3-2 win over Iraq, who had striker and tournament top scorer Ayman Hussein sent off late on for his goal celebration last night. Jordan went ahead on the stroke of halftime when Yazan Al-Naimat pounced on a sloppy pass and raced past the defence. The 24-year-old chipped the ball over goalkeeper Jalal Hassan to score before celebrating with his teammates by sitting on the turf and pretending to eat a meal. Iraq struck back in the 68th when Saad Natik headed home from a corner before Ayman scored 8 minutes later when he controlled a cross and fired into the bottom corner. The joy of scoring his 6th goal of the tournament quickly turned to shock when the referee produced a second yellow card for excessive celebrations after the striker mimicked Jordan's players and sat on the turf pretending to eat by himself. While Iraq fumed, Jordan took full advantage of the extra men, and when Musa Tamiri's stoppage time effort was parried by Jalal, Yazan Al-Arab was on hand to fire home the rebound. The comeback was complete just as it looked like the game was heading to extra time when midfielder Nizar Al-Rashdan was left unmarked outside the box and curled his shot past the keeper. Jordan will now face tournament debutants Tajikistan in the last 8. Meanwhile, defending champions Qatar survived its scare to beat Palestine 2-1 and advance to the Asian Cup quarter-finals thanks to goals from Hassan Al-Haidos and Akram Afif at Al Bayt Stadium early this morning. Despite Qatar starting as firm favourites on home turf in front of nearly 64,000 fans, it was an industrious Palestine side who looked more promising in attack in the first half, and they were rewarded for their perseverance in the 37th minute. Palestine stole the ball of Qatar high up the pitch before Ode Dabeh embarked on a solo run and shot past keeper Mushar Barsham into the bottom corner for his 3rd goal of the tournament and the country's first ever in the knockout stage. But Qatar's keeper Al-Haidos equalized with the last kick of the half when he latched onto Afif's low cross from a corner and fired it home through 2 defenders and keeper Rami Hamadeh. Qatar then took the lead minutes after the break when Almoez Ali was brought down by a late sliding tackle from Mohamed Saleh and Afif stepped up to score his 4th goal in as many games at the tournament. Palestine had a few chances to equalize but lacked the finishing touch as Qatar held on. They will return to Al Bayt for a quarter-final against either Uzbekistan or Thailand. Liverpool star defender Virgil van Dijk admits the Premier League have a big job to replace Jurgen Klopp when the German steps down at the end of the season. Van Dijk said this as he comes to the terms with Klopp's shock decision to quit once the current campaign is over. The Reds captain does not believe uncertainty over Liverpool's long-term future will affect their ambitions this season. They crushed Norwich 5-2 in the FA Cup 4th round on Sunday in the first game since Klopp's bombshell announcement. But he knows Liverpool must get it right when they pick Klopp's replacement. Admitting his curiosity as to which direction the club is going, he said replacement for Klopp will certainly bring about some changes to the club. Bigger tests await Liverpool on Klopp's farewell tour, with Chelsea visiting on Wednesday before they head to Arsenal next weekend. Dutch defender Van Dijk, 32, insists nothing will be different about Liverpool's approach as the Premier League leaders chase silverware in 4 competitions. Liverpool currently sit at the top of the Premier League table after 14 wins and 6 draws, losing only once and collecting 48 points from 21 matches. Manchester United said yesterday they had dealt with an internal disciplinary matter involving Marcus Rashford after he missed training last Friday and was absent from Sunday's 4-2 FA Cup 4th round win against Newport County. The Premier League club had said initially that the England forward, who was reportedly seen at night spots in Belfast earlier in the week, was not well enough to be in the squad for the FA Cup match. United said then that the 26-year-old had stayed at Carrington to train as he recovers. United's latest statement said Rashford had taken responsibility for his actions and the matter was now closed. Rashford, United's Player of the Year in the last campaign, has 4 goals and 6 assists in all competitions this season. He has been dropped before by Erik ten Hag, with the manager leaving him out of the starting lineup for a game against Wolverhampton Wanderers in December 2022 after he turned up late for a team meeting. Rashford ended up scoring the winner in that match. United next game is at Wolves on Thursday.
Isu-isu sukan tempatan di pelbagai arena, pelbagai gelanggang. Pencapaian dan kontroversi akan dikupas dan dibincangkan dalam Planet Sukan setiap Ahad 10 malam di TV1 dan saluran sukan RTM. Saksikan juga secara penstrima langsung di RTM Klik.
That ends the bulletin today. Wrapping up with a recap of our top story. Our Sultan Abdullah ends tenure as 16 Yang di-Pertuan Agong. Tune in to Malaysia Tonight, coming up at 8:30 p.m. on TV1 and saluran Berita RTM. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. I'm Sawi Samsudin, Malaysia Madani, tekad perpaduan penuhi harapan.
Selagi ada bulan dan matahari, begitulah kesetiaan rakyat kepada raja dan negara kekal abadi. Ikuti istiadat keberangkatan balik sempena tamat tempoh pemerintahan ke bawah Duli Yang Maha Mulia Seri Paduka Baginda Yang di-Pertuan Agong ke-16. Dan istiadat keberangkatan tiba ke bawah Duli Yang Maha Mulia Seri Paduka Baginda Yang di-Pertuan Agong Sultan Ibrahim Ibni Almarhum Sultan Iskandar sebagai Seri Paduka Baginda Yang di-Pertuan Agong ke-17. Secara langsung di TV1, saluran berita dan RTM Klik. Daulat Tuanku.
Data-data dalam padu ini digabungkan daripada pangkalan-pangkalan data kerajaan dan digabungkan di dalam satu pelayan ataupun server yang berlainan. Tapi kalau kita gunakan data ini saja tanpa kita buka kepada pengesahan kepada orang ramai, maka nanti apabila ia digunakan untuk penyasaran semula subsidi, akan ada yang tak puas hati. Dia kata saya patut dapat, ini macam mana kerajaan dapat data saya tak dapat
anak
dan
ada
sebagainya. Anak ada 6, 2, macam-macam dah cerita yang timbul kan. Jadi sebab itu data itu perlu dipadankan dengan kemaskini daripada rakyat. Baiknya, bila kita nak buka kepada rakyat, kita kena ambil kira beberapa perkara. Pertama, kita kena ambil kira soal keselamatan data. Jadi sebab itu, bukan semua data yang ada dalam padu itu dibuka kepada rakyat. Kalau ada yang orang tanya, kata ini telah menggabungkan data-data kerajaan, kenapa saya hanya ada beberapa lapangan data saja tapi data lain saya kena isi? Kerana data-data yang sensitif seperti gaji, KWSP dan sebagainya itu tidak dipindahkan kepada satu pelayan yang asing